Welcome to Faith, Reason, and Geekdom. I'm Roger.
And I'm Dusty.
My brothers and sisters in Christ, join us every Thursday as we work out these three perspectives in our everyday lives. Welcome back, everybody. In this episode, we're going to be peeling back layers of history, and you guys are going to learn about the origins of the cross with me and Dusty. Ancient times, gladiators. There's even stories of gladiators even crossing their swords back then. I don't know if you knew that, Dusty, but we're going to get into that. Also, we're going to spark your intrigue with some very controversial topics about what opinion do you hold that's very controversial in the church. We're going to get into all that. Also, the world of Catholic voting principles. How are we supposed to vote? What does the church say? Is there a dogma? Do they endorse any political party? Target boycott? What's the boycott about? What's the behavioral that as Catholics we do? We're also going to address the big elephant in the Vatican, the Pope's health. We're going to shed some light on him and make sure everything's going good. I don't know. This is a crazy time. There's this crazy world. Grab your rosaries, get your boycott signs. I don't know, get your holy water, pay attention, embark on this journey. Dusty, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, and we have a loaded show today, Roger, so we're going to go right into it. The first thing that we're seeing in the news a lot lately, especially this past weekend, is Pope Francis missing several Vatican events and audiences with people after experiencing some health issues, and in particular, a fever, which apparently prevented him from meeting with groups and individuals. Why is this important? Why was this headline news all weekend? Here's why this is important to me. First of all, prayers to Pope Francis.
Of course, yes.
He underwent surgery back in 2021 that I happened to undergo when I was younger, described as symptomatic diverticular stenosis of the colon. In my particular case, this was one of the most serious things that happened to me. I almost died because of it, and it was because of complications. I've described to people as, have you ever seen a tire that gets a bulge in it, like a little sack, right? A car tire. Yeah. And then all of a sudden that sack keeps growing and growing under pressure. The same type of thing happens in our digestive system. And as a matter of fact, about 5% of people, by the time you age and you are like 40, 50 years old, that number grows tremendously. More than 5% of people are affected. Almost everybody gets some form of diverticuli or diverticulosis,
really,
which happens in the colon. But usually, it's not a condition that will force you to have surgery, only in the most extreme conditions, which I happen to have an extreme condition. In my case, what happened was, and this is probably too much information, but the diverticuli, that bulge that happened in my colon, in my intestinal system, exploded. Sometimes things like seeds and little tiny bits of food that are not properly digested go into that sac. It becomes infected sometimes. I was going to the hospital a lot, like every 6 months I'd end up in the hospital. Well, the Pope had something like this, and it jumped out at me. That was in 2021. And the gentleman is 86 years old. He's intending to continue serving as the Bishop of Rome as long as possible. But there are people who talk about this topic for another reason. And the other reason is, in the Catholic faith, we have a saint who is known as Saint Malachi. Okay? And there's this thing called the prophecy of Saint Malachi. And some say, going back, to when the Pope was elected, that his election was signaling the end of the world. Now, this is a topic that we're going to have on our show in the coming weeks.
Yeah, soon.
The end of the world, right? Which is a very popular thing for people to talk about in the Bible. There was this saint called Saint Malachi who was basically a visionary, and he wrote down 112 symbolic phrases that supposedly represented a list of 112 popes in succession. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, this is a guy who lived, he was an Irish saint who lived from 1094 to 1148.
Yes.
And his alleged prophecies were not discovered until almost the 1600s in 1590. So we're talking, 400 years after this guy dies.
So
There was
wow, yeah.
a legend that was discovered that Malachi experienced a vision in which he was given insight into the Pope's past, present, and future, and he recorded this vision in a series of sort of cryptic messages.
Wow.
There's other prophecies and people who Nostradamus and
Yeah.
guys like this who wrote in these cryptic verses, but the prophecies were actually quite accurate up until the point where they were found in 1590, and they became rather vague as history went on, lending credence to the theory that they were a 16th century forgery. Okay, so there were some people who believed that up until the time when they were discovered, boy, they were right on. But then after that, they became a little more vague.
Yeah.
But the thing to point out here is that the last pope that he wrote about, the prophecy supporters have claimed that number 111 on the
Oh,
list, the glory olive, which was the term he used, is Benedict. Pope Benedict was Pope Benedict, and then 112 was or is Pope Francis. Okay,
yes.
so after 112, there are no more popes, and the prophecy, depending on who you ask, says that this is basically arguing that the prophecies are worth paying attention to because the fact that Malachi is a Catholic saint, and that that some Catholics attribute magical or spiritual qualities to this vision, and that we're talking about the end of the world, that Rome is
Yes.
destroyed after the rule in Rome is destroyed or something like that. I remember reading, and I hate to be so vague, but this is one of the reasons why I, as a Catholic geek, took interest in this, because as we talk about the potential end of the world, the potential end of Pope Francis in rule, I'm watching this closely.
Yes.
And God forbid this is our last pope.
The last pope, like, is he the last pope? I know it ends with that, but is it like the Mayans? Remember, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
2012, that's because it ended.
The
So
end of the
is
Mayan calendar.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So is it that they, like, maybe got a hand cramp or something? He couldn't finish. I don't know. Like, you never know things like this. So it's very interesting. And again, some Catholics would be, oh man, they want him to resign. Some Catholics would say, no, you want to keep going on, and always health, life, obviously. I don't know well, there might be a few, but I don't know anyone who wishes ill on him, and I certainly don't at all. Like I
Yeah.
said, whatever opinions you have about Pope Francis, he is our Pope. Someone, of course, there's a whole crew that would say no. He is the Pope. I submit to him. But we wish I have to have him luck, because that fever could get. You know what he needs though, right? He needs more cowbell. Cowbell, right? Have
Cowbell.
you ever seen? Remember, that's one of the most famous. I'm gonna go off on an SNL. Sorry, this is geekdom. My geek brain, because it was funny. As soon as you said the last pope, I thought of like that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, The Last Action Hero. So I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
oh man, The Last
Love
Pope
that movie.
starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Men
I
in
do.
Black.
It's very
Love that.
underrated. Very underrated. All right, well,
Very
that's
well
the end
written.
of that part. Let's move on to the next before I start going down the Last Action Hero rabbit hole.
Well, the next thing is going to introduce a segment for our
Yes,
podcast,
brand
which
new.
this is a really, really cool idea. Ask a Catholic geek. There's a lot of questions out
Yes.
there. I've taught RCIA classes. I've taught confirmation classes in my few years serving in the church as a layman, and always we get the most interesting questions from people. I wanted to expand that. I wanted to go to Reddit. I wanted to go to Twitter. I wanted to go to social media to see what questions people are asking about that we could talk in depth about in the show. Today's sub segment is called Crosstalk. So
Yes.
welcome to Crosstalk for the next few
Like it.
minutes.
We should have a stinger. We got to get remember that little siren
We're
now?
gonna
We got to get a
actually jump
stinger.
into the sign of the cross, and the
Yeah,
question that was asked was, let me just read you what I found
sure.
online. The
Yeah.
sign of the cross is a significant gesture in Catholicism. Everybody knows it. We've seen it in countless movies. We've experienced it as Catholics, people who are maybe not Catholic. You've seen it in every vampire movie, in every situation where a lead character is like really needing God. They do the sign of the
A
cross, and
demon. Yes.
Yeah, right. And so they touch their forehead, they touch their chest, their left shoulder, then their right shoulder with the right hand. This gesture is usually accompanied by the words that we hear during baptism, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the origins of this can be traced back to the early Christians and the practices of the early church.
Way
And,
back.
and we have to remember, this is something I love to bring up because people forget that the early Christians, the guys who started following Christ, had to do it underground for about 300 years. Why? Because the Roman Empire lived on for another 300 years after Christ died.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they did not like those Christian boys or girls. They did not want that. They wanted people to honor Caesar and the empire. And that was like their thing, right? So they had to do it underground. They had to have like their own beliefs and their own services and
In
even
secret.
as I mentioned before, yeah, like in the tombs, in the catacombs underneath Rome, they would gather sometimes in individual homes. They would gather, but when they would celebrate the mass underneath the catacombs in Rome, it stunk of dead bodies down there, right? So that they would start by burning incense, which we still do at mass today. We still burn incense. Many priests prefer to do it at every mass. Some do it only during special masses,
Yes.
but that's
Very
one of the
rare.
signs. Yeah,
Sometimes.
and you know, this is one of the things that people talk about. Okay, so this person said, I like the sign of the cross, but sometimes I like just kind of doing it for myself and doing a small sign of the cross on my forehead. Is that okay? Is that cool? And the answer is what we're going to dive into. All right, we'll
Yes.
get into that, but let's first talk about the origins of the sign of the cross, which can be understood in several ways. The first one we started talking about, which was the early Christian practice, the sign of the cross, found its roots in early practices of the Christian community. There was a Christian writer from the 2nd and 3rd century that mentioned the sign of the cross in his writings. Tertullian was his
Yeah.
name, and he described how the Christians would sign themselves with the cross during various activities, such as the beginning and end of prayers, before meals, and during other occasions. Now, you've heard, and Roger, I know you're very well read on church history and stuff. You have some other stuff. You mentioned Roman soldiers doing
Yes.
crossing their swords or what?
Yes, and just like Fulton Sheen always used to say, it's like there was always stuff, and even the church would say unofficially, of course, right? That
Mhm.
Aristotle, there's even jokes the church fathers would say, that Aristotle was a proto Christian, right? If you guys don't know, just in case you don't know, Aristotle was way before Jesus Christ. So, but we believe, like Fulton Sheen talks about, how there's always these elements, right? Throughout history, God's laying down the seeds. And yeah, like the Greeks used to do it too. Like they used to mark their head as a sign of like good luck on their journey with a little cross. So the Greeks did it, the Romans, they would make little crosses on their shields. So all of this stuff have some pagan elements. Now I know there's
Wow.
going to be a segment of Christians or they're going to be, I knew the Catholic Church. See, they just admitted it. No, but remember, if you don't understand, that might shock you. But remember, there's a lot of things. Hello, Wednesday. We don't worship. We're not saying, oh, yes, Wednesday. So you got to understand that just because something may had some vague, loosey goosey Greek or Roman origins doesn't mean it's bad. There was customs that they had even before Jesus Christ, and the Christians, as being good stewards, we take what's good, leave what's bad, right? So in the twist of fate, you see the sign of the cross being more adapted, it has way more meaning. And
And that's
yeah,
interesting that you mentioned that because one of the things I hear in my household a lot is about some of these pagan religious,
yes,
well, pagan, it's hard to say religious because that wasn't really a religion, but
yes,
some of the
exactly.
pagan holidays, some of the, I'll try to make this as brief as possible. In the same way that Our Lady of Guadalupe was
Yeah,
able to cross the bridge or create a bridge for bringing Native Americans, specifically, the cultural, the Mayas, the Incas, the Aztecs from Latin America over to the Catholic faith, right? Because of the
yes,
symbolism that she had on her image, her appearance, and so forth. one of the things that we have to talk about with the sign of the cross is the Trinitarian symbolism, the Trinity. The sign of the
Obviously.
cross reflects the belief in the Holy Trinity, which is
Yes.
central to our Catholic theology.
Yes.
By touching the forehead, chest, left shoulder, right shoulder, Catholics symbolize their faith in the Father, the forehead, the Son, the chest, and the Holy Spirit, left to right shoulders. The words are spoken during the gesture, explicitly referencing the Trinity.
Yeah.
This is also a symbol of redemption. The cross, the sign of the cross, is seen as a symbol of redemption through the crucifixion of Jesus. By making the sign of the cross, Catholics acknowledge their belief in Jesus' sacrifice on the cross for the salvation of humanity. One of the cool things that I ran into in my life, in my travels, Roger, was an exorcist who was quite old. I wonder sometimes if he's still alive. I should look him up. But he's an author, he's a speaker, and he, at the time when I met him, he was teaching other exorcists. Like he would go to Chicago and he'd have a class for 80 more exorcists.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Huge rise in the number of exorcists in the Catholic Church, which
Oh
is
yeah.
a really interesting topic for its own show again. But
Yep.
this particular guy had a cross that was made of wood from the original cross of Jesus. Okay. That blew my mind. And I don't think he was pulling, my leg when he told me that. He's also said that because of that, it was one of the most powerful tools that he had when facing demons.
It's very important. You mentioned Tertullian earlier, and
Yes.
like one of the greatest Christian writers, and he said that he said that believers should mark themselves with the sign of the cross at every moment. He said whether walking, sleeping, eating, or drinking, as a reminder of the faith's centrality in their lives. And also in the beginning, it was used also as a symbol of reference, of reverence, and its triumph over pagan customs. And also too, when Christians used to be killed in the Colosseums,
Yes.
they'll get eaten by lions, and of course you're far away, right? Especially if you get those seats, those $5 tickets, and you're like way up there, like in the Spurs game, right?
Yes.
You're like, what's going on here? Oh man, I can't see this lion eating this guy's head. Well, what the Christians would do, they wanted people to know why they're there, and then that they would sign themselves the way we do now, forehead, chest, as a big symbol, because it would be kind of hard, doing the little one. And you're right,
Yeah.
we did earlier just do it in the little one on the lips, on the forehead, but they did the big body one to show the people in the Colosseums, I'm here
Right.
because I'm a Christian. Wow, this is a fascinating topic, Dusty.
Well, the protection and the blessing, the sign of the cross, is often used as a gesture. I know in my household it was, growing up in a Latino Hispanic household. My goodness, every day before school, my mom or my dad or both would come up and give us. My mom used to give us the full sign of the cross. My dad, most of the time, would take his thumb and putting his head on his hand on our head, and then using his thumb to give us the little cross on our forehead.
Yeah, I know
that was definitely sort of a ritual that was intended for us to have a blessing of care, of just, a sign of the cross believed to invoke God's presence with us. And every single day they would send us off to school with something like that, from the time I was little to the time I went off to college and walked out that door. But it's a symbol of protection and grace. I don't know if you remember, Raj. Do you remember growing up with anything like that? Yeah.
Oh,
Did your parents do that? Or your grandparents?
Yes.
What was the deal?
Well, my, of course, Hispanic family, there's different ones. I call one of them the wet one. So your grandma would go, mija, ven pa acá. And then so she would do the sign of the cross, but she would end it with a big, wet, sloppy kiss on your forehead. I call it the wet one. And then there's the astral projecting one. It's where you don't even know it. Like sometimes when I was a kid, I would like run away and go in my car and I'll just, I would feel like the Holy Spirit hit. And when I turn around, you would get the grandmother at the door. Like if she didn't get you and you snuck out, she would do it at the door. So she would do the big and then nomine padre, and she would do it with the hand. So it just like astral project and hit you. And you're like, I felt something. You don't even know what it was. And then of course you get the little T, those a little cross is what I call it. Yeah, the same as you is on the forehead, and it's just a little, you know what I mean, like a little quick
Mhm.
little thumb. And sometimes the nails, they don't cut, so sometimes you might get a little blood, and oh my goodness, that's even more
Oh my
symbolic.
gosh.
But so those are the three. I mean, there's many other ones. There's the hokey dokey, there's the banana turn. I have different names for them,
Oh
but those are
my
the three.
goodness.
Those are the three ones that I remember growing up as a family, and I do too. I'll have to admit though, I don't do it as much as I should. So I'm
To
afraid
your
to
own kids.
submit. Yes, I don't do it as much. So
You're,
this topic's
Roger,
making,
you're dropping the ball, man. Come
yeah,
on, you got to pass that on. You got to pass that on, man.
it's
Especially as
convicting
many
me.
kids as you have. My goodness,
I know
we're missing an opportunity here to continue
Yeah,
spreading our faith, and
I'm dropping the ball.
it's not
You would
limited.
think
This is
you think I play for the Celtics.
oh,
Oh, that was too
don't
soon.
even
Okay,
go
too
there.
soon. That was too soon. Dropping
Yeah,
the
the
ball.
Heat one, right? Talk about religious,
Oh
right?
man.
Man. It's important to note that the sign of the cross is not limited to Catholicism alone.
I
It's
was just
also
gonna
practiced
say
by other Christian denominations, including Eastern
they
Orthodox,
do it reverse.
Oriental Orthodox,
Yes.
and even some Protestant traditions. Although the precise form and usage may vary,
Yes.
uh, and that is the answer to our question. Is it okay to have the little sign of the cross? Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. I think it's a beautiful thing to um, commend yourself to God, no matter if you're doing it out big and wide, like you're doing it, or if you're doing it small. I've been going to a class that's being taught at a Christian church, one of these, community Bible churches that we have in all over the country that are very, very strong in liturgy and reading the Bible and so forth. But I'm like the only Catholic guy there, and oftentimes, what's happened to me is I catch myself like about to do the sign of the cross, and we're all
Oh,
finished praying right before class, and I'm like,
yeah.
you know what? I don't care. I'll do it. Right. And sometimes I think about it. Sometimes I don't. But it is
Hesitate.
like an unusual thing. And this gentleman who asked this question, or this woman who asked this question, may have his or her own reasons for wanting to do the small sign of the cross. Oh no, don't mind me. I was just scratching my forehead.
Yeah.
But moving on. I wanted us to talk about something else that people are talking about. This is outside of our segment. I just thought this was an interesting question as I was looking for possible questions to ask in our new segment. This one, we're going to be going more like into confession or into reconciliation here. And our confessor is the audience. Now, I want us to both think about this question, Roger, and I was going to spring this on you, but I gave you a little bit of a cheat sheet ahead of time to tell you that I wanted you to think about what genuinely unpopular Catholic opinion do you hold? In other words, the question was asked, a controversial question. As a Catholic, what genuinely unpopular opinion do you hold? At least an opinion that would be unpopular in the Catholic Church, in your community of Catholics, in your friends and your priest friends. I don't have as many as you. So I will start.
Whoa! I never said you had a big old list. Go ahead.
I only say this out of knowing that
Sinners go first. Sinners go
you know,
first.
you've
I
been
guess you go first.
controversial, and you said that you have quite a few, and you spent a lot of time, and I really admire you for this. You spent a lot of time learning about our faith and doing deep dives and reading
Yes.
books and listening to audiobooks for hours and hours. I wish I had that kind of time. Most of my faith has been learned just along the way, things I've stumbled upon. But I know I always come to you with the hard questions. But there are people who were talking about on the internet, for example, being a tree hugger, right? That their faith was incredibly clear that we are the custodians of God's earth, that it is our job, that He created in His image to protect and nurture the earth, right? Did the Garden of Eden have any sewage dumped into the rivers? Did the species there start dying because lack of habitat? Did CO2 get dumped on the masses in the atmosphere? No, right? So this is one of the things people were also talking about. For example, contraception. Even things like universal health care, which was supposedly, according to some opinions, fundamentally opposed to Catholic values and things like that. For me, I think that one of the things that I have a difficult time is on the idea that only men should be priests. I really wish we would speed that process up of admitting women to be leaders in our community. I've actually seen female deacons, okay, and in my travels, and real good ones at that, right? But no one has ever really admitted that women should belong in the raising of the Catholic parish household instead of just the home household. So that's mine. Change is very slow in our faith and in Catholicism. That's just one that I would love to see, because I believe that there are some women who are gifted and could nurture an entire parish with their things. And of course, they're limited. You know, they're nuns. They serve in other ways in our faith. And there's a reason for that. And I know we could go into it for another 20 minutes, but that's mine. What do you
Okay.
have?
Okay. All right. And also too, we just want to say too, in this wonderful segment that you brought up, Dusty, I really like this one. We want to talk about, we're not saying what opinion that you have that you outright gonna like change the church. You know, we're not a heresy, like something like, I don't believe Jesus is fully man, fully God. I don't, you know what I mean? We're not saying that. The
Right.
Pope's not the Pope. We're not talking about that. This is a fun thing that we're doing, right? Little being real, right? We're keeping it real.
Yes.
We're keeping it
Keeping
real.
it real.
We're so
Absolutely.
just wanted to throw that out there real quick. And okay,
Okay.
I'll be fair.
As you
Yes.
prepare to dive off the
Yeah,
diving board
no,
into
no.
something here, you're up to
That's what
something.
usually
All right.
people say. No, it's actually not that bad. I have two. Let me throw out two. Okay,
Okay.
real quick. I have to say it because my brain's like, um, I'm gonna be fair to the segment, but like I have to say because my brain's like, oh no, like I disagree with that. Like I don't think we should have women priests, but I'm gonna be fair to
Okay.
the
That's
segment
fine.
because you're
That's
saying
fine.
could go 20. So I just had my
I
theological
told
brain
you
cut in.
mine would be unpopular,
Yes,
starting right
there you
here with
go. There you
you.
go.
So
Started
that's
with me.
fine.
I rejected. No. Okay, so mine are I have two. One is the newly okay, I want to be careful how I say this. Um not the new, I don't want to say newly because there is principles. Okay, so anyway, the official like now it's like not dogma, it's not a dogma, right? It's not a dogma, but it's more of a
Okay.
tradition. The death penalty where Pope Francis says now like death penalty is now inadmissible in modern
Okay.
time. I disagree with that. I submit to it. But I disagree. Submit, but disagree because in America, I do agree. In America, yeah, I don't think we probably need it in America. But what about countries like Chapo? Like how many times is he the Houdini the Mexican Houdini? Like how many times has he escaped Chapo, right? Like he just
The
hey, here you
narco
go,
guy,
Chapo. There you go.
the
Yeah,
infamous narco guy. Yeah.
Chapo guy, yeah, the infamous drug lord. Like
El
he
Chapo.
escaped. He just like literally just opened the door and left and stuff like that. He had like tacos waiting for him and a fiesta. Like he just sneaks in and out. So
Yeah.
people like that, I think they should be on death row and should be killed. In Africa, you can't hold the jails. There's corruption. So I think countries that are corrupt, like you cannot lock up these drug lords. Like you can't. In America, yes, but sometimes you do need to kill them. So I know I again submit, but I disagree on the new spin on the no death penalty is admissible. That's one. The second one, I do disagree. This is more of a modesty issue. Now, when I say modesty, people think, okay, wearing, like if I came out in hip huggers and a tank top, that first of all, nobody wants to see that. Second, that's like
Yes.
immodest, right? That's immodest.
Yes, I second that. That's correct.
But but it's different because like in Africa, many of the church theologians or even I think priests or popes talked about how if you go to Africa and some countries that are not developed, women will go breastless. I mean, not breastless. Well, that's where
Restless. Oh my
topless.
goodness. How did they
Top,
have that
they'll
happen?
go
That's a magician's
topless,
hand.
right?
They go topless. Yeah.
Yeah, they go
They
topless,
go
and
breastless.
and I know, and the church would say that's not immodest because that's their culture. So I've heard priests say that. I think even I could be wrong. Maybe some popes in the past said that's not immodest because it's their culture. So when I talk about
Well,
modesty,
not only that, but listen, I got to talk about this. This is really interesting. You talk
uh-huh.
about one of the first Catholic churches in America was celebrated at a church in honor of Our Lady of La Leche. Now, this is not a joke. This is a version of Mary who is exemplified in different statues and paintings as breastfeeding Jesus. Okay.
Yes, yes.
And, it's not like, I'm not saying it's in Florida because, they have nudist camps and stuff there. I'm
Which they
saying
do, by the way.
which they do, by the way. When we were in Florida last year, we were on our way traveling down from Miami to northern Florida, where there is a Catholic church, a very big Catholic church devoted to Our Lady of La Leche. That's what she's known as. Okay. And then on the way there, we actually ran into a little tiny church that was like
Tres Leche. No, I don't know. What was the name
no,
of it?
that was on the side of the freeway at one of the earlier cities that ended up saving us a 2 hour drive all the way north, because we found it fascinating that the local diocese had built like a little chapel there on the side of the road in honor of Our Lady of the Leche. So if you want to look into that, I mean, that is a real thing. Like,
never heard of it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, well, as I was saying about my things on popular opinions, but a modesty, and it's very vague, but what I'm talking about is, for example, it's better to give examples. Like, for example, I think there's some humor that some people might find off-putting or too edgy or too, and even bad words. I'm not talking about cussing in front of old ladies, because I think that's kind of trashy. When I know a lot of people, trust me, that they get around and they're just cussing up a storm, and there's strangers they don't even know. I think that's like disrespectful. I'm talking about amongst your friends, amongst people that know you. If you, I'm not a sailor, but if you ever, drop a word here or there or say an inappropriate humor joke, there are some Catholics that like will clutch their pearls at that. And I'm again a millennial. I'm 36. I grew up on Dumb and Dumber. I grew up watching Super Bad. I grew up on, not saying they're good, Beavis and Butthead. It's almost like I'm an African warrior topless girl. That I'm the same. We're the same person. So culturally, my humor is brought up a certain way, and I think that I'm not saying it's the ideal, but I think that's okay. I don't think we need to be like policing hardcore if somebody's humor is edgier or somebody's language is a little bit edgier or they're a little bit more sarcastic. Because some people would say, no, you can't make fun of people. You can't do this. You can't fight like other people. And I would say, I don't know. That's that's unpopular opinion. So those are my two. So did it shock you? I don't know if it shocked you enough, Dusty, or what were you expecting?
No, I really thought you were going to go more hardcore with that, but I really haven't really heard you go more hardcore than that. So it didn't really shock me. There's topics in here. Like, I want our listeners.
We got to do a part two
really
later. We should do a part two later.
Honestly, yeah, we could do a part two.
Because you just dropped it on me, like I was,
Yeah, like I just dropped this on you right before we went on air. I think look, there's some people who are big on socialism. Right.
Yes.
Which is like, what? And all you got to do is read the Beatitudes, right? What does it say? Care for the sick, home the homeless, feed the hungry.
Sam Rocha is big on that.
There are people who believe, they love our tax money doing exactly that type of thing. Yeah. And is that going far enough? And that brings us to our next topic, I think, which is we want to talk about. A lot of people are shocked to find out that Pope Francis's best friend is a homosexual man who is in a homosexual relationship. This is Pope Francis, right?
Wait, I didn't know that at all.
You didn't know that? Oh, yeah. No, well, look it up.
Fake news, everybody. Fake news.
Yeah, no, it's not fake news. It's real. It's absolutely real. And it's part of our system of faith to, as a Catholic Church, love people regardless of their sin. You love the sinner, not the sin,
yeah.
Right?
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
So, and we've talked about this. We're talking about this upcoming in our series, Catholic Help Us, which is going to be launching on YouTube soon.
Excellent.
And these are really hardcore issues that
it is
calibrated on, right? So, as such, there is something going on social media right now in the news, where some hardcore people of conservative ilk are boycotting Target because of something having to do with the gay faith, gay culture, gay lifestyle. What's going on, Roger?
Yeah, well, let me tell you this. Target, I think you've heard of them, right? There's Walmart, there's Target, H-E-Bs, and I'm sure most of you guys all over the United States have Target. Well, they just lost over the last few days or week a significant amount of marketing valuation, $10 billion. lost in the marketing valuation. That is huge. And it all stems in America mainly from this Pride collection. It's an apparel collection, right? They sell clothes. This collection includes this. This is the big one. I think this is the big one. Tuck friendly swimwear. Now, if you don't know, use your imagination, right? Use your imagination. But if you don't have an imagination, it's literally, let's say you have, a woman described it one time.
Male parts that you
yes,
were trying to
or as one woman on Twitter, one woman said, if you have a little extra meat down there, you can tuck it. What she was an advocate. Yeah, that's what she said.
That's way worse than I was going to go. I was going to go.
What...
Then she puts the lotion in the basket.
Oh yeah.
Right? But anyway, we are really we are so bad. We're digressing worse than we've ever done. We all because we opened the door on what popular or unpopular belief in the Catholic Church do you carry? So
I think it carried over. It carried over. No, okay. So tuck friendly swimwear, right? Also, there's the LGBTQ friendly gear for infants, because everybody knows infants are very sexual, and also children, 9-year-old, 8-year-olds. And so those are the big three. But again, I think the tuck swimwear, that's real huge. But man, this has had a huge criticism, and it sparked, even there's been Target even reacting to it. They even moved some of them, not all of them, but it's been reported a lot of them moved them from the front because they were on display right when you walk in, bam, it hits you in the face. Just a whiff of Pride hits you in the face, and you walk in and it's right there. But a lot of them moved them to the back. There's been reports of violence breaking out. I haven't seen any. And when I think a reporter,
I saw some. Also, I saw some fake news though.
Fake news, everybody.
Fake news. People.
Thank you.
Targets that were destroyed, literally destroyed.
Really? What do you mean?
But they were actually from Black Lives Matter protests, not from
mostly peaceful. Let's be careful. It was a mostly peaceful protest at Target. But but so I mean, this is a lot, right? $10 billion. That's crazy.
That's a lot.
And
that's like some of that loss turned into the Spurs gain by getting the number one draft pick in the lottery. Their franchise just went up $500 million.
I'm gonna buy stock in Spurs now.
But we're gonna leave this topic. I think it's an interesting thing, and it does put into me forever changed the image of a movie called Tuck Everlasting in 2000.
Is that a real movie?
With any of this is a young man who was part of a family of immortals and a young woman that made and fall in love. But man, I'm never going to think of that.
Oh man,
Tuck Everlasting now becomes like a sexual. I don't know.
Well, I'll say this: I guarantee you,
that you might do Tuck Everlasting.
I guarantee you that movie Tuck Everlasting is the video somewhere that Catholics and Christians should not frequent. You know what a section, the adult section. I guarantee you it's there. So let's move on to the next subject.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. Like we were talking about, what beliefs you have.
Yes.
What are the beliefs that we're supposed to have as Catholics when it comes to voting? And I'm talking about specifically now on the heels of a guy like Ron DeSantis joining the presidential race. What's going on with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we all knew it. It's the worst kept secret ever. We all knew this, right? But officially, it wasn't which
thing did we know?
Twitter.
The Tuck Everlasting thing or the
no,
I'm sorry.
No, not the Tuck Ever.
That DeSantis was going to join the presidential.
Yes, that he announced on Twitter and it crashed. There's a whole nother thing with that, but he finally announced, and he had a little video. He came out and he announced that he is officially running, and he's joining Tim Scott, who recently announced he's joining Taylor Marshall, who I don't know if he's still trolling. I think he might. I don't know. Taylor Marshall announced that he's running.
Wait, I didn't know that. Did Taylor Marshall say he's running for president?
Yes, he did. Wow. Yes, he might have been trolling. I don't know. Check it up. Yeah, and of course you have. Excuse me. Thank you, folks. If you look at what's happening in Florida, largely run by Ron DeSantimonious, Rhino Ron, they call him. Some people would say the worst ever. Now, I don't think some people say that he's a rhino. I don't know if you guys know what rhino means, but that means like the old school, the boring, like lower taxes and fight wars. The George Bush era. That's what they call
Yeah.
rhinos. It's a bad word, a
Description.
slur. It's a
Yeah,
slur.
flirt. Okay.
So yeah, and so now Ron DeSantis. Oh, I almost said it. See, oh man, Trump is good because I almost said his name. Ron DeSantis is
Yeah.
running, but this is what I want to bring it back to. This is a Catholic show, so election time, right? It brings in mind: are you going to vote for him, or is he going to be the elected to go up against Joe Biden? Well, we don't know. So how do you vote now? Obviously, we all know this. The church doesn't officially endorse anybody.
Boy, they get a knock on the door by the IRS pretty quickly. They lose their tax exempt status quick. And that's like an easy way out of that problem. So you're not supposed to do that. That's why you have a tax exempt status. You're not supposed to be. There's a separation between church and state. So all of that being said, where are you taking us?
Okay, so we do have to have principles, right? So here are the official church teachings, guidelines. Again, remember, they're not endorsing nobody, but these are the principles. Number one, of course, human dignity, right? We know what that means. Every person has an importance. Every person has the right to life, right? So that's from what do they say? From the womb to the tomb. I think Father Will says that, right? That's one of his lines, but other people say it too. So from conception to natural death. That is a trademark. So that's abortion, euthanasia, human trafficking, which is, I mean, really out of hand, human life. Now, number two is the common good. Obviously, common good with compassion for the well-being and also to the flourishing of everybody in society, no matter the color of your skin, no matter anything. We have to social justice. Now, when I say social justice, people get triggered. It's not what you think as in social justice warrior. That's two different things, So this is addressing poverty, inequality, like we mentioned earlier. This is your Dusty. You're gonna love this.
Okay.
Protecting the environment,
Wait a
and
minute. Why
access.
am I going to love that? What is
Because I
that
thought
about?
you said, didn't you
Oh,
go on a rant about the Earth or something like Captain
well, that was
Planet was your
somebody else.
favorite
That was
hero or
somebody
something? I don't know. He was one of your
I'm
favorites.
always like, one of the things you'll find with me is I'm always pretty much in the middle. Like
Yeah,
I sit back and I analyze, I watch the fight for a little while, and then I'll pick a side. But
yeah.
yeah,
But
I mean, look, there's this. I'm not like deflecting or
sure.
getting angry that you pointed that finger at me. I think that's a just cause, and I
Yeah.
support science and some of the things that I
Oh
see
yeah.
on Wall Street that are coming, that are gonna that are amazing, right? That are gonna
Yes.
help our environment. They can't get here soon enough. But
Mm-hmm.
this is a very timely discussion that you're having. Are there any more
Yes.
things?
Yes. There's subsidiarity. Of course, if you guys don't know what that is, because again, I don't think it's talked a lot. You don't hear it a lot. It's pretty much like if you're in trouble, first go to your family, and then your friends, then the community, and then the church, and then so it says that we should do that. Kind of like, I don't want to say small government, but like something similar. Of course, another principle, solidarity. Now, I think we talked about that on one of the episodes. Like we have, again, I'm not saying agree with everything they do, but in general, we're supposed to be one with the marginalized, one with again, in general and within reason with the poor, right? So people like that. Another one, a big one, is religious freedom. That's another principle. The church upholds very importance about religious freedom. You have to be free to express, free to practice, and that doesn't mean, hey, go in the church one day a week, but if you come out in this earth, or you're in your job, or you're in the public square, shh, don't talk. No, that's not what we mean. The Catholic Church doesn't say in your private, just go in there, don't talk about Jesus. Hello, make disciples of many nations, the Great Commission. Now the last principle I want to get into is almost a cheat sheet. It's prudential judgment. And this is the one that really splits. If you're keeping track, and if you're like, let me line up the Republican Party versus Democrat, and let me, I know there's people playing a shot game and like, all right, if it's over here, check it. But here's the one that kind of prudential judgment. Now, when there is no clear, definitive church teaching on a certain thing, we have to use judgment call, but using the core principles. Now, the church does say that we are allowed to have different opinions on specific policy solutions. Now, hear me when I say that. different policy solution. Example, well, Dusty, let me throw it to you. What do you think when I say specific policy solutions? Can you think of something that the church says Catholics are allowed to disagree on? This will be a fun little, if you're paying attention.
Well, I am paying attention, but I can't. It's too late at night.
Okay,
I can't
fine.
think of anything that quickly
on
my feet, but I'm sure you've got one.
Yes. So, for example, immigration is very controversial and it's very nuanced. If you say the best policy solution is to do A with the border, again, you're free to think that as long as it's within all those principles, check them up.
Right.
So, and if you're on the other side of whatever aisle and you're like, I think solution policy policy B is the right one. Yeah. Again, check it up the example. So again,
well, it's interesting because for me personally, and really it comes down to personally for me, because I think we are in a system of government where at the end of the day, when it really comes down to it, the only person you're going to be able to rely on for anything is yourself. And what my guidance in the Catholic faith from the time I was a kid was, you do the most moral thing. And how do you define morality? We've talked about this.
Yeah.
You define morality as doing the most loving thing, right? Sometimes the most loving thing is not giving $1 to the guy on the corner who you can tell is probably a drug addict. That's not the most loving thing, but it might be to go buy him a lunch,
a meal.
Like that, right? So it's hard, but I operate from that principle. I think when I go to vote on any of these subjects or issues or taking a stance, is really what is the most loving thing? What is the moral thing that we are called to do? And that also applies to, like you just said, in a very clear way, to the right for someone to leave a system of government in their country and try to find a better life for their family, or to find a way to feed their family because they can't in their home country. And is it our most loving thing to do to welcome that person and maybe offer them an opportunity to contribute to our society? The answer, I believe, is yes. And why is it yes? Because we do that all the time, by the way, with people who are highly educated, people who are, nuclear physicists and doctors and stuff. We encourage those guys to come over. We make it easy for them to become citizens, but we don't want the guy who picks fruits for us to set on the table to eat. That's a real difficult thing for me.
Yeah. So I hope I laid out those principles. Now you guys, if you never heard that and it's the first time you heard this and you're like, wow, that's cool. Re-listen to this episode, share it with your friends. If you know a friend that's like, yes, the church is conservative, or a friend that the church is liberal, send them this. It's not a shameless plug. And by the way, it is, but it's not. Share it, give it to them. So those are the principles that I got.
Yeah. And don't forget to leave
or the church got, not just me. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Don't forget to leave comments. Don't forget to rate the episodes give us some thumbs up and support us. We are hopeful that we are going to be taking this show on the road onto video pretty soon.
Yeah.
And we know that once we jump onto YouTube, where there are so many people that hang out, so many more people than hang out on our podcast, even though we are all over on every popular podcast platform. We're looking forward to that, but we hope that you would continue to join us, and we hope more than ever that you will have a blessed week ahead. And I'm Dusty.
And I'm Roger.
God bless.
God love you.